So the last part of chapter 6 before we jump into chapter 7 deals with the linkage between the budget constraint and the demand curve. Now we already saw a little bit of the tie between the two in how the law of demand is reflected in consumption changes by consumers when prices change, right? So we're going to kind of walk through that process more specifically here. So we're going to have a budget constraint, and we're going to have this too good world that's going to cheat a little bit because we're going to have everything else on the y-axis, and we're going to have housing on the x-axis. And so what we find is that we draw a initial budget line that has to do with some original housing price, right? And the intercept here is just my income divided by my initial price of housing, right? Because this is my intercept is essentially saying if I don't spend money on anything else and I just spend all my money on housing, how much housing can I purchase, right? How much housing can I purchase? So it gives us an intercept there of our income divided by that initial price of housing. And so we're told that we're going to have a price increase from P0 to P1, and then from P1 to P2, and then again to P3. So how do we represent this in the budget constraint, right? Well, this is the same as the example that we just finished. So we're going to have a new value here, m over P1, and we're going to have a rotation. So we're going to have that same starting value, but a new end value for our budget constraint. And we're going to keep on doing this. We're going to end up with, we have some value here, which is going to be, m over P2. And then we're going to have a line that travels from the vertices down there. And lastly, we have some sort of m over P3 down here. So we draw another curve here. Now, especially with something like this, we know that we're never going to be in a situation where we're not going to consume any of the everything else, right? We have to consume some food, we have to buy some gas, so on and so forth. And so we're not going to be on this edge case. And then also, we're not going to be homeless, so we're not going to be on this edge case, right? We're not going to be in a situation where we are spending no money on housing and all of our money on everything else. So we're at some sort of place in the middle. And what the book says, and we're just going to follow along with that, we're going to say that our initial consumption is right here, our m0. Our initial consumption is right here. Our consumption when the price increases is going to go to right here, m1. As our price increases more and more, we're going to travel a little bit further north in terms of our everything else that we're consuming. And these points here, right, these consumption decisions correspond to different prices, right? M0 has to do with P0. M1 has to do with P1. And these are telling me the amount of housing that people are purchasing, right? A budget constraint is giving me a certain quantity down here, right? Q2, Q3, Q2, Q1, Q0. And so if I have different prices in different quantities, well, I can put those on a price and quantity axis to tell me at different prices, right? So when the price is low, when the price was that P naught that it started out as, we had a quantity of housing that was Q naught. So we label this one E1. When we increased the price to P1, we saw that the quantity of housing shrunk from Q naught to Q1. Same thing happened as the price of housing rose again to P2. At P2, we were at Q2. And lastly, at P3, we are at Q3. And so if we combine all of these together, we end up with a downward sloping demand curve for the housing market. Questions on tying our budget lines together with the demand curve and how we derive the demand curve. So the demand curve shows the dynamics of a budget line as prices increase and decrease for one of the goods. Questions on that? Awesome.